So hi everyone and welcome to my session for the In Love Summit. So as I briefly discussed with Natalie previously, what I'd like to lead you through is a little self-care or self-connection exercise that I enjoy doing in my art journals. And I find that if you are able to make time for spaces and times like this, that it can really help you, help your both your self-care practice, but also your self-connection practice. Self-connection and I like to use the term self-empathy quite a bit, and self-empathy, and simply sort of being aware of what actually is going on within your heart, soul, body, and mind. As if it can be a very healing and supportive process. And I specifically find that I can do this well when I art journal, because these spaces require me, I think, to engage another part of my brain. So I'm fairly left-brained due to, I suppose, a traumatic childhood, actually. And I find that when I go into my art journal and access the creative and symbolic, I would say symbolic part of my brain. So I like to, the art I create isn't sort of very realistic necessarily, as you can sort of, I've got some laid out here. So it's not sort of, I don't just do, let's draw a painting of an apple. And it's less for me about technical accuracy and more for me about playing and experimenting and exploring, which then activates and being creative, and it activates that right part of the brain, which also is the relational part of the brain, which I've, by the way, learned from an amazing lady called Sarah Payton. If you're ever, I love her work so much, I recommend her wherever I can. It's empathybrain.com. Anyway, so that's the relational part of the brain and gives me access to my own, my inner world more easily than the right brain can. So that's why I recommend doing it, or it's a way of doing it, right? There's many ways that we can all self-connect and get connected to our bodies and minds and souls and hearts and stuff. So, but this is one very effective way for me, and I wanted to share it with you. So I've laid out just two of my journals at the moment. Just I'd like to I can flick through a little bit and show you a couple of my artworks that I've done. And I wanted to point out to you that you can see that it's often faces are part of my journal entries. That is because for me, faces are, I project onto faces a lot. So I find that they either listen to me or it's me. It might be a version of me. So sometimes I do sort of magical self-portraits as well. But some people claim that every portrait is actually a self-portrait. Hey, even if they don't look like you. But to me, these are like the face is a very important way for me to access emotion and get connection, I suppose, in the world. So that's why I think I like faces. Anyway, so there's usually a face for me there, but there's also writing and sort of symbols. I like doodling and symbolism a lot in my pages. So, and I also really enjoy creating scenes that make no sense, such as butterfly wings on an arm or a boat that sits on hair that's turned into an ocean. So it's kind of like I started calling it magical realism. But I don't think that's the correct term. That's used in a form of literature that I don't think I'm quite touching. Anyway, same here. I like to add all kinds of symbolic doodles or shapes or words. I don't shy away from drawing onto faces with, extra symbols and elements like that, like flowers on the eyebrow, non-realistic doodly on the eyebrow, or words on the face, or and these doodles and words and expressive additional elements usually come about when I'm connecting with whatever I'm experiencing in the body, and I might be noticing like a sadness, and then perhaps I want that sadness to be seen, so I might write down, do you see, so these are sort of where the words come from. So the words often for me come from responding to what I notice when I sit down and breathe into my body and go, oh wow, there's a sadness, or there's a shame, or there's a worry, or there's an anxiety. And then I may also be listening to music, or quotes or poetry play a big part in my work as well. So now just a quick word about so that's what we'll do. So a quick word about the the type of materials we'll use. So I actually laid these two out because this is actually a mix of everything. I'm a mixed media artist, so I will bring in anything that feels good and right for me. But sometimes I have a tendency to focus more on water-soluble mediums, and at other times I focus more, and that's particularly lately, I like doing more acrylics work. I particularly like it because acrylics has been a real challenge for me over the years. So I've become more and more, I'm befriending acrylics more and more. So I've been and challenging myself to do more work in acrylics only. Anyway, so I've laid this out as well as an example of this being mostly acrylics and this being mostly water-soluble paints, although there's also a little bit of acrylics in here, I think, and gesso. Now today, what I wanted to do with you, I already held up in the previous bit before. I wanted to, I will work on a bigger journal than in this, but lately I've been doing, this is my little journal, and I do little, this is like my travel journal type thing when I go away. So here I like to do exactly what I just described to you, and where I will sit with myself, notice the sensations, thoughts, feelings, anything that I'm noticing, particularly in my body, because I'm also someone who needs to really make an effort to connect with my body. I've been quite disembodied in my life, again related to trauma. So sitting down and doing this in this journal, I tend to have a face of some sort, and then you can maybe notice here that there's lots of writing here in the background, which actually is lyrics from a Billie Eilish song. I'm currently a bit obsessed with her. I love her music, and I liked her song, which was "You Should See Me in a Crown," and it was quite it's sort of a defiant song. I love about her that she has a sort of a self-confidence that I didn't have when I was her age, and it really somehow speaks to me at the moment. So when I feel low or something, I like to listen to music that is uplifting or somehow empowering. And so currently the theme, for instance, I also really love the song "This Is Me" from The Greatest Showman by Kiala. She performs with Kiala Settle. So music can really help support me in processing or supporting me with whatever I'm going through. And then either the lyrics of the music I'm listening to might bring it in. So today, we can either do a little face similar to this or similar to this. This is quite, I did this one recently and I felt like it's quite a lot of layering with darker colors. This one is lighter, as you can see, but it felt a very powerful page because it felt like she was listening to me with a strength. You can see in her face she's resolute, and I didn't deliberately draw it that way. It just came out that way because, of course, I had something going on in me that meant that this face had to be there for me. And that one isn't finished. I had another one that was more watercolor here. So this is, someone called this a rainbow face, and I thought that was quite nice. And we could maybe try and do something like this. I have lots and lots of, here this is something else that we won't do, but an elephant. I have all kinds of styles, little styles, but I thought today we will focus on mostly working with water-soluble materials. And then, let's see if there's anything else. It's acrylics, but also good. So these are all my supporting characters. These are all my people that listen to me when I have hard stuff going on. Isn't that so lovely? All these people are there for me. Anyway, so I was thinking of doing something similar-ish to this or to this, and there's a couple of sketches there. Or this, I really quite like this hairstyle for some reason. I've done it a couple of times now. So I thought maybe we could do something like that. Let's focus on something similar to this, but I will work in a larger journal. So I work on 140 pounds of hot pressed paper. You don't have to work in a journal. If you have just loose sheets or a watercolor pad, that works as well. You don't need to use hot pressed either. You can work on cold pressed, which is the grainier type of paper, if you prefer. But try as much as you can not to buy super cheap watercolor paper, because that will pill more easily, because we do quite a bit of wet work. So you need sort of sturdy, strong watercolor paper. But you also don't need to buy like the most higher costly type of paper either. Just get a sort of a good brand, like maybe De La Rowney or Canson, and a hot pressed version of it, if you don't have anything lying around. Okay, and and then the types of supplies I'll use will be, these are the Jane Davenport watercolor set. However, you can use any kind of watercolor that you like. You have I have artisan nowadays. They like to send me stuff to try out. I will also maybe use a couple of water-soluble crayons that you can lift paint off of, you know. But I love, I absolutely love my Jane Davenport watercolor sets. They're very nice. And then again, Arteza is also very good. And you have, who's it? Not John Daniels, Daniel Smith, sorry. Daniel Smith. There's all sorts of good watercolor sets out there. And you won't need a lot of colors either. This is actually quite a straightforward sort of, almost, you can do this type of work with quite a few limited supplies. You can of course use as many supplies as you like, but you don't have to. And I'm going on holiday next week to France, and then what I do is I tend to take a small amount of art supplies with me, so I have a travel kit, and it's really fun to work on a limited supplies. The other thing I sometimes include are Tombow markers. Love Tombow markers. They're ink based rather than pink, like they're not like water, they're different texture, if you will. And or what else can we use? I will definitely use a white and a black Posca pen of some sorts. Okay, I use the Posca pens, but if you have a white or black pen, gel pen or something, that can work as well. And then I do use and I use a graphite pencil for sketching, plus sometimes I use some color pencils as well. They are not water soluble, like Prismacolors, like these types. Ooh. Oh, this is Faber-Castell. Sorry, Faber-Castell. The moment I see a sort of a Germanish word, I go back to my Dutch roots. Faber-Castell, or French, if it's a French word. So Prismacolor, so anyway, again, it's not essential that you have all this. To be able to do this, just watercolors and a pen and a pencil will be sufficient, I think. All right, now I will need to time-lapse this section because there isn't as much time for my entire process in step-by-step, but I will put subtitles under to show you what I'm using, or if I'm changing any supplies or anything. So, and I will also start with the tiny sort of grounding, little grounding meditation type thing for maybe 2 or 3 minutes only, not very long. Okay, so I think that's all I need to say before starting. So I hope you enjoy my session here today. If you want to learn more about me, I'm Tamara Laporte and I'm on www.willowing.org. Love to see you there. I'd also like to meet people on Instagram. It's my favorite social media place, and I like to do stories and all that. So if you'd like to join me there, I'm Willowing on Instagram. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so before we begin on the art activity, I'd like to encourage you to just sit still for a moment, close your eyes, and take a couple of really deep breaths and try to ground yourself into this moment here. And some of you may notice that you have a lot of chatter going on in your mind, or distractions. There might be sounds outside. And just let it be. And gently, as you're noticing that you've become quieter, just start to focus your attention on your body. And notice if anything is calling your attention. So you may notice some emotions like anxiety or sadness. And as you do, if you notice any of these emotions, just try to gently say hello and acknowledge that you notice the emotion. You don't have to fix the emotion. You don't have to judge the emotion. And you don't have to dismiss the emotion. The emotion just needs to be seen and heard for a little moment. Continue to breathe deeply And you may notice some symbolism or reactions to your experiences. Make a little mental note, because these are always nice. For instance, if you notice a sadness and perhaps a little bird, a sad bird in a cage or something, pops up in your head, this is potentially a symbolic representation of your emotion. Just notice, or I sometimes, when I feel sadness, I think of a heavy stone in my stomach. Any imagery that you notice, just make a mental note of it. Of course, it could also be that you're simply noticing relaxation and joy. And just keep breathing into that if that's the case, and savor it. Maybe express some gratitude. Or you may notice some pain, physical pain. Perhaps you can send some love to the physical pain and some understanding of how hard it is to experience that. So I will now be quiet for about a minute or two, and I'd like you to continue scanning your body and touching in with any emotions, sensations that ask your attention, and simply acknowledging whatever you are experiencing. No need for fixing, judging, or dismissing. And I'll be back in about 2 minutes or so. Okay, everyone. So slowly just come back to your art desk or your couch or wherever you are. And Taking up another couple of deep breaths. And take with you this presence while you create your artwork. And notice as you create your artwork, if any feelings emerge and how you, if you want to express them, perhaps through the expression of the person's face or some words or colors. Yeah, just bring with you this presence and self-connection and try to create from that space. Engage with the page and the art supplies while also engaging with your inner world, and then let it be a sort of a dialogue, a back and forth thing between you and your art creation if you can. Okay, so let's get started. Okay everyone, so I'm pretty much finished with this little journal spread. It's sort of a spread, it's not entirely a spread. I haven't really touched this side much. I didn't really talk about working on 2 pages or single pages, but really it doesn't matter. I mean, I like working in journals, and then if I had worked in my little one, that would have been just a single page really. But I decided to work on a larger one and it became a double spread. Or somewhat touching. It's lovely to work with the double spread because you have this side as well to write and play with color and express yourself while connecting with what you're experiencing in this moment. But I mostly focused on the face and all her surrounding areas. The hair. Hair is great. If you have lots of hair, you can do all kinds of cool things in it. You can add, again, doodles. You can write into the hair. I didn't add collage this time. I did consider it, but I felt like I wanted to stick to what I was doing. But that's another possibility for if you wanted to bring in collage and express yourself in different ways. Again, these are all really great ways of getting self-connected. So while I was doing this spread, I was listening to a spiritual guy who I like called Matt Kahn, and he was talking about choosing to be here, surrendering and anchoring the light. And it really spoke to me on many, many levels. And so a lot of my words and my expression was about that. But the final thing was that I was talking about, and I actually started crying listening to what he was saying. So I was really deeply self-connected in a positive sort of way, because I kind of felt really seen, or I felt like I was hearing a particular message that I needed to hear for a while. So the word seen came up. And I think the purple color scheme connected to the blue is always a very soothing color scheme for me. So I'm sort of in a soothing kind of space. Compassion also is always a very big theme in my life. So that word came to the forefront this time. Yeah, so I mean, I could do all sorts still. I might want to add a couple more doodles here and there. I absolutely love decorating faces in the way that I do, with little squiggles and all sorts, or little houses or flowers. That's these tend to be symbols I use a lot. But I'm pretty much finished with this. I really enjoyed creating her, actually. See, she's inspired by this girl, but it's almost like she's her older sister. Can you see? She's a little bit more mature. And this girl seems younger and a little bit more innocent, and she's lived through some stuff. So I don't know. I always like, actually, sometimes it's really, I recommend recreating the same face like 4 or 5, 6 times ish, a similar face, and see, because it's very fascinating though you try to recreate a similar face, they always come out still differently, or has a different kind of message or something, or a different emotion, different feel. All right, everyone. So I hope this was interesting and enjoyable for you to watch, and I look forward to seeing any of your art. Please do tag me on Facebook or Instagram if you are posting anything in response to this session with me. I really love seeing what you will do. And again, if you enjoyed my session here today, you can find me on www.willowing.org. I hope to see you on some of my classes or on social media, anywhere else on the interwebs. So do feel free to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and wherever else. Okay, well, much love, and thank you for having me here. And again, I can't wait to see what you do. All right, bye-bye.